Another Premier League weekend of great action and controversy once more leaves us questioning what is the point of VAR. Today, we are going to have that exact debate. We're going to talk through some of the major talking points from the weekend. And we want to hear from you guys, of course, in the comments. What are your thoughts on the decisions? What are your thoughts about the use of VAR in general? Let's get straight into it. Reese, we'll come to you first because your team is involved in the first one we are discussing, and that is, of course, Newcastle versus Arsenal from yesterday. Brilliant game, drama, a late winner. But once again, we're talking about VAR making some interesting calls. So let's start in chronological order, I guess. The Gyökeres penalty, the foul or not the foul from Pope. What did you make of it in real time, and what did you make of it after the replay?
Yeah, as always with this, it's one of those beauties of, when you get to look back on it, you get to make a more firmer decision. I think it was pretty safe to say that when we saw that incident happen, everyone called penalty. No one was shocked it was called penalty. However, as we saw with Gary Neville on commentary, when we looked at it again, we can see why it was not given. Um, this is where VAR becomes such a hard thing because you can follow the rules to a T, but you can also leave things open to interpretation. This is why everyone has a different view on it. And this is why all these experts that sit in row Z behind the post can apparently see it, and why Mikel Arteta can apparently see it, but obviously can't see Gabriel the Gabriel thing later on. I thought penalty at first, which obviously I would have done. However, when I do see it again, I can see why the referees have come to that decision to not award the penalty. Um, Nick Pope did sort of change his knee. Again, this is ridiculous because this is why we're going into such analytics. If we're going to go into the knees, we might as well look at the position of the toe and the blade of grass. But he did that, and it looks like he got a touch, and they clattered into each other. Um, so I can understand why it wasn't given. It aligns with law 12.1, doesn't it? If the following offense, if offences such as charges or chumps at, kicks, attempts to kick, pushes, etc., then you have to give the foul. Careless when a player shows a lack of attention or consideration. You can look into all those rules, but I can see why it wasn't given. But next week that could be given. Um, Due to how it was, I personally don't think it's the worst decision I've ever seen. But again, I'll sympathise with this one and say that, yeah, I think Arsenal were a bit unlucky, but I also believe that it was a fair foul. If we're going to compare that to the Sanchez one again at Old Trafford, that was different because he did openly clatter into the attacker, which gave him that red card. So they are different things and different moments, but I would argue that they were right to not award that penalty in the end. But you could do, as silly as that sounds, it's a very
Well,
political answer, but I can understand why it was and why it was not given.
that is a very
There,
political
there
answer.
is doubt. You can't give it, and that's the problem. There's that element of doubt with Pope that caused that moment. So I don't blame them for not doing it.
Okay, so just a couple of things on that because I think again it is a really interesting debate. You said next week that will probably be given, and for me that and you mentioned the Sanchez one. I know it was slightly different circumstances, but when I saw that yesterday, I said in real time he's touched the ball. But based on yesterday, I still think it should have been a penalty because although he touches the ball, he also subsequently with the knee takes out Gyökeres and still prevents him from putting that ball in the back of the net. So,
Yeah, you're
and
right.
again,
No, I was
like,
just going to say you're absolutely right. Like, I do think that excuse of touching the ball can only go too far because you're just going to encourage players to absolutely clatter into others because they're going to win the ball. The reality is, yeah, like it stopped Gyökeres moving any further forward, didn't it, to gain an advantage?
yeah, and I think for me, the point of how this needs to be improved is you've got to look at the trajectory of the ball because in that one yesterday, in my opinion, Pope doesn't kick it so far away that Gyökeres can't get the ball. Gyökeres could have still got the ball and put it in the back of the net. So for me, that should have been a penalty. And again, the Sanchez one was obviously outside the box, but it was the same principle. He has he technically has won the ball. I mean, won the ball's a bit loose, but he's kicked the ball, but then subsequently wiped St. out, and he didn't kick the ball far enough away that Mbermo couldn't have got it. So again, for me, yes, red card, fair enough. But at what point there needs to be something that's a bit clearer because for me, if Pope had won that ball yesterday and booted it into Rose Ed and it's gone forward, then I actually don't think that's then a penalty because Gyökeres can't get the ball. Pope's got there first, therefore it's like incidental contact. So that's the way I see it. But again, there's no consistency. Jamie, what did you think of this one?
This one I thought. I think I'm just going to go with it. It wasn't a penalty. However, the problem is when the ref gives it, is it enough of a clear and obvious error to overturn it? Because that's what we've all been told. The decision will stay with the ref on his on-field decision unless it's clear and obvious. And the fact that we're sort of having a debate, Reese can give a political answer of both sides, probably says it's not clear and obvious. If I was a Newcastle fan and that got given against me, I'd be fuming. I'd be like, keepers have to come out. Keepers don't tackle in the conventional way due to them making saves and using sort of all body parts for it. So the way that Pope's had to come out will be different to a defender doing that sort of similar tackle. So I'm still in the fact that he's got the ball. I'm not saying, it's a massive clearance, like you said, like into Rose Ed or whatever, but he's got to come out and try and block the ball. That's effectively his result at the end of the day. He's got to do that. So that's why I wouldn't say it was a penalty, but it's just weird they overturned it. And just quickly on the Robert Sanchez one, it's completely different because you've got to remember Sanchez's leg, after touching the ball, hits in Burmo's knee or just above it. That there is the sort of reckless tackle. Whereas Pope's, I don't think was anywhere near that in terms of why I think they're completely different. And I would say Sanchez got deservedly sent off. And I don't think it was a penalty for the Pope one. But like I said, I still don't think they should have overturned it. That's the problem you've got at the end of the day.
This is a problem that football has created itself. Fans, pundits, managers, players are to blame for this because of how they want the rules. They want it to benefit them. We'll discuss the handball rule in just a little while. But, this is where it's so complex. Like, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to get a tape measure out to see how much of his knee has hit Gyökeres? Like, how far can we go into this? Like, as far as I'm concerned, yes or no? Like, they've got 90 minutes to put the ball in the back of the net. Gyökeres could have clattered into Pope. Let's be fair here. Well, do we want to measure the wind on how far the ball could have gone round? It's all ifs and buts. I understand why it's not given, but I understand why it should be given. That's how complex some of these decisions are, where you might have a clear rule, but how far can you really go? I agree. Maybe they should have just stuck with the decision and just got on with it. But that's easier said than done. We brought VAR in to analyze these things a little bit further. And you look at it now and you say, actually, Pope feels justified. He can come out and do it. There's no point having goalies being stuck on the line because they're worried about coming out and giving a foul. So I don't really see the big deal of this. And I'm not saying that because we ended up getting a win, because believe me, I think there's a decision that could have gone a lot worse, involving the match winner. So.
All right, well, let's move on. And we're not moving on far because we're talking about the same game. Late in the game, I believe it was 1-1 at the time. Saliba very, very clearly hits his hand in the box, preventing a cross for Newcastle. Nothing given, reviewed by VAR, and conclusion was no penalty. I'll be honest, you can say it come off this and that. He's blocked a dangerous cross into the box. So for me on this one, his arm's up in the air. Your arm doesn't need to be up in the air when you're sliding. So for me, this should have been a penalty again. Sorry, Gabriel handball to clarify, but just absolutely ridiculous for me. Anyway, I think this is a pen. What do you guys think?
Again, I did think it was a penalty, but then they followed the letter of the law, where if the ball touches a part of the body before the hand, they don't give it. Gabriel's arm is ridiculously high for what he's doing. And again, I see why you would give it, and I see why you didn't. And this is where they can't win, because if you would have given it, they would have said he's not followed the rules. He should, he needs to follow the rules. But when they follow the rules, they've not given leniency. I mean, what more can the referee do here? I understand why it was not given if it's hit him first. That is a murky area, which, by the way, these players and these managers used to demand that handball is handball. Then penalties started getting given against them. Oh, well, we need leniency then. And this is the result. You reap
Mm.
what you sow. So I don't think that was the decision where Gabriel was lucky, actually. Um, I do think that I understand again why this was not given, judging by that rule, if you want to follow the rule to the T. So that seems to have, again, when we've all analysed it to death, my God, it turns out it was the right decision, but again, might not have been.
Well, just quickly before Jamie says his opinion on that, you mentioned that wasn't the Gabriel incident you had in mind. Are you talking about the sort of I don't know what you want to call it, whether a slap or a push or a
Yeah.
contact with Walterman's face?
Yes. I'm not talking
Again,
about the pathetic attempt thinking it was a push for the opener, by the way.
yeah,
Obviously VAR's against Arsenal, blah, 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 blah. How can they say that's against them when actually stats have shown they get a lot of decisions their way? I will also point towards that Odegaard handball at Anfield in 2023, which suggests that, it evens it out eventually. If he would have gone down in that moment, Watermud, which he didn't, fair play to him, Gabriel would not have been on that pitch. What a stupid thing to do when you know the cameras are there and they can look at it. What a stupid thing to do. And he would have likely cost Arsenal the game because he wouldn't have been on the pitch to score the winner. That is what Arteta should be furious about. How lucky he is to have Gabriel on that pitch at that moment in time. Simple as that.
yeah, it's a good point. I just you're right. If he goes down rolling about like an absolute idiot, that gets given as a red card. And again, it's another debate around VAR, but why should players have to do that to get sent off? I just don't understand it. Jamie, what did you think of, I guess, both incidents?
I'll just talk on the sort of Gabriel into Ottoman, stupid, and VAR should be picking that up because it's not like Sky Sports didn't pick that up. If Sky Sports pick it up and VAR have more cameras, why have they not seen it? And it's completely stupid and very lucky. You just can't do that. Like that's what would have happened, sort of 20 years ago, and that would have been the norm, to be perfectly honest. But there wasn't cameras. There wasn't it was a different game in terms of physicalness. So yeah, stupid on that. In terms of the handball one, though, if that ball was crossed just straight from, I think it was Elanga, his leg, if his leg hit it perfectly straight, went up and hit Gabriel's arm, it's a penalty all day long, and I don't think anyone could argue with it. But it has gone Elanga into the sort of leg side of Gabriel and then gone up to his arm. That's where I think it's the right decision. It wasn't a penalty. Why his arm was up there, stupid. I don't really get it. I've never known why your arm needs to be this high up when you're sliding. It doesn't make much sense, but he's lucky it's sort of the cross wasn't perfectly contacted by Elanga to go and hit his arm straight away. If it was, that was a clear penalty. No one would have a debate, but it has hit his side. And that's where I think you can't, it's sort of really difficult with the ricochets. And I think you have to just go, it's a ricochet and it's hit his arm. He's not.
His arm's so high though, like it just doesn't need to be there. That's the problem.
It is, but like you can, you can't say it's a natural position or whatnot. But when the fact that it's it's hit against his side and then gone up there, that's where I'm like, it's not. I think with the letter of the law, the way it is, it's just not a penalty.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. We'll stick with the theme of handballs because there was another two controversial decisions from the weekend. We'll start with we'll start with Fulham Villa because this had more impact on the result. Um, it's a Fulham shot. Matty Cash handballs it in the box. It hits his arm, and it prevents it going towards the goal. So again, what did you guys make of this one? Because for me, King's shot is going in the back of the net. It's not going towards the keeper. It's literally going in the corner of the goal. Cash's arm is out, and it blocks it from going into the goal. So you can say natural position, whatever. For me, this is the point of VAR to see that and give a penalty, but it wasn't given. What did you guys make of this one?
So I think your argument of it was going in the goal should not matter. It should be, is his arm in a natural position, yes or no? That's the kind of block. Because if his hand is fully by his side, it's going in and it hits it, it shouldn't count. However, the problem I have with this one is when Everton played Leeds, Tarkowski had one where his arms were closer by his side, blocked it from going a shot on target. I don't think it was going in, but a shot on target nonetheless. Hit that, VAR reviewed it and went penalty. This one, Cash's arm is in less of a natural position, in my opinion, and then you don't give it. Regardless if it's going in, even if it's going wide, it doesn't matter because of the way his arm's in an unnatural position. Like we're saying with the Gabriel one, there was no ricochet. It went straight onto his arm. That, for me, there is a clear penalty. I'm not saying he did it deliberately. It still could be accidental, but what the rule is if it's not in a natural position, it's a penalty. And there's no way where his arm was a fully natural position. I understand how it's ended up there, not like Gabriel's where it's sort of, fully extended or extendable up, but it's still not a natural position. And for me, it should have been a simple penalty, especially when you're giving the ones like the Tarkowski one in the first game week of the season.
Yeah, again, you're right. It's just a complete and utter lack of consistency from game week to game week. Different, different interpretation of the rules at the end of the day. And I get what you're saying about the point of it shouldn't matter whether it's going for the goal, which maybe I'm trying to make it more complicated. But for me, where it flicks off someone's arm in the corner of the box, it's going to go for a corner. To me, that shouldn't be treated. And again, maybe this would be more confusing. That shouldn't be treated as the same as a clear block when it's going in the corner of the goal. Like one's a goal and one's not going to be a goal very clearly. So I'm not saying that's necessarily
no, but if you have
easy to implement.
if you have crosses, some crosses aren't going in, but they've hit the hand. It's sort of that's why I think it shouldn't be overcomplicated with whether it's going to be a shot on target, a goal, or not a goal. Because let's be honest, we don't exactly know if it was going to go in. It could have, bounce, hit the post, come out. We don't know. And I think that makes the referee's job even harder when we're saying they're not getting his decisions right. Don't add another degree of sort of level to it. It's natural position, yes or no. Has it hit it straight away? Yes, done. I think it should make it a bit more simple. Otherwise, you're just getting more and more decisions wrong or more decisions where people don't think it's right because the rules are so complicated.
Yeah, again, it's another example where, you reap what you sow. They all demanded that handball is handball. I'll repeat that. They got it. They've moaned about it and whinged about it, and they've changed the rules for them. Deliberate is always handball. Obviously, this is unintentional, making it more subjective. I do think Fulham were unlucky here. I do think they were. And, you've seen it before where it has been given on this because Matty Cash didn't obviously attempt to handball it, but a big chunk of that hand did stop that ball from going in even on target. So I think he is unlucky, but this is where we go. Do we just go back to doing handball is handball again? Because that would have been given, But obviously Marco Silva's upset about it, but he obviously stayed quiet last year, didn't he, when he got the 3 points at Nottingham Forest for a controversial penalty decision? Obviously he didn't mind that, did he? So it goes to show again how it all evens itself out eventually. Every manager thinks the refs are against them. How can every ref be against every club? Surely everyone would be on no points or something. Unlucky, yes. Okay. But the reality is you still have 90 minutes to get the ball in the back of the net. You can call me ignorant or whatever, but why doesn't if everyone's so good at refereeing, why don't they go and do it? Simple as that. Like, I think they're unlucky, but again, they'll get a decision go for them in a couple of weeks' time, probably. So,
Yeah, I think that's an interesting debate because I think at one point in time we've all definitely bemoaned referees for being biased, and there's definitely referees who have had consistently worse performances for certain clubs. Michael Oliver at Arsenal, Anthony Taylor Chelsea, Jamie. I'm sure you got a ref you hate as well. So there is definitely that goes on, as you said, Reece. Though is the PGMO against every club? Obviously not. Every fan believes that, right? But what I do believe in personally is subconscious bias, right? Like that is a proven scientific behavioral science, whatever you want to call it. That's a fact. And I do think a lot of that goes on at this level, which can explain a lot of the decisions. Like the one yesterday, we're talking about the Saliba one. I know we've disagreed, but funny enough, a controversial penalty doesn't get awarded for Arsenal, and then conveniently later, a clear, in my opinion, handball goes the other way, and they suddenly don't give it. For me, that's a bit of subconscious bias. You know, we obviously referenced it in the last few weeks when there was a massive kick over that decision with Chelsea against Josh King and Fulham with the Menez foul. Conveniently, the next week there's a big offside decision that just gets overlooked. Like I don't think it's a conspiracy, but there is definitely subconscious bias that exists because they're humans at the end of the day, and this
that's
is the problem with the game.
yeah, and that becomes the same argument for fans and players, isn't there?
Absolutely.
There's bias. They don't care, about the other team, getting decisions not go for them because you want it all for yourselves. That's how competition works. That's what you do. It's as simple as that. So it's just a vicious cycle you can't win. Just if you want to follow the rules to the T, do it. But they're only going to moan about that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Just quickly, a quick touch on the Salah handball as well. The still images of this look absolutely hilarious. Maradona style, arm up in the air, contact with the ball. For me, again, I just can't wrap my head around some of these decisions. Luckily, in the end, that one didn't influence the ultimate result of the game, which is positive. But again, very quick one on this. What did you guys think of that?
I
It's
don't think he touched it.
really.
No.
I'm certain he touched it. I'm like fully certain he touched it. It was almost a basketball pass. It's just so stupid. They've got all these videos. They've
But you're
got.
saying, but I'm saying I don't think he touched it. You're saying you think he touched it. Therefore, there's no conclusive evidence, is there? I mean, Salah's hand should not be that high. I mean, what is he doing?
But you can
The
also
reality is
throw in
you know,
there. He's intended to try and touch the ball, so it's even like that's put in that sort of like you can go the intention of it as well, which is a whole nother sort of debate with it. But
exactly. Like I stood outside a bank the other day. It doesn't mean I'm intending to rob it.
well, you
It's
shouldn't wear a balaclava, should you, mate?
exactly. Yeah, that probably doesn't help. The getaway van and shotgun. But the point is like, everyone's freeze framing it. The ball didn't like take a huge deflection off his hand. That's the problem. It looked like a perfectly straight line, hence why it didn't look like he touched it. If he didn't touch it, it's very, very narrow margins, but it's very, very possible to not touch it. But again, you can't get the conclusive evidence out of that. That's the problem. You could zoom into that. We don't have the technology to zoom all the way into the microscope of the ball there. It doesn't look like he touched it to me. But again, how can we give it if we can't 100% say that he did?
Yeah. Well, this is the problem. We're sitting here still 100% disagreeing, and I guess that is part of the challenge for refs. It's going to be tough given the subjective nature of some of these decisions. But yeah, let's move on. Last but not least, once again, more both red card and penalty controversy in a Chelsea football match. Um, there was kind of two key elements. The Chalobah red card, which personally I don't think there was too much of a talking point on. Similar where Chalobah touches the ball first, but then does technically get contact the player. So for me, in hindsight, I think that was probably less of a talking point. There's still people on the internet who disagree though. So what did you guys firstly think of the red card, and then we'll talk about the Gusto kick.
Red card as a result of very, very questionable defending. In a way, Chalobah had no choice. We should not be angry at Chalobah. Be angry. Who was it that basically gave it?
Santos with the bad pass
That
screwed
was
him over.
that was poor. I mean, the two goals they conceded were poor, to be honest.
Yeah.
Should be better.
It's a red card to me. It's just last man. He's through on goal, doing that. It does sort of question. I don't. I think sometimes it's difficult for a defender because at that time you want to stop him scoring. You want to try and put him off as much as you can, stop him scoring. But that effectively actually lost you the game. Like it wasn't like it wasn't just drawing the game; it lost you the game, and that's where sometimes it's. I'm not saying like I will see. You'll see Van Dijk. You'll see all the top defenders do that same mistake, but sometimes they just need to not do it because you got to think it's not just about that one moment; it's about the rest of the game as well, and that effectively cost Chelsea the game, really. But yeah, red card for me.
Yeah, and then finally, the one that is definitely open for a debate was the Gusto kick on Minter, I believe it was. Look, you can accuse me of being biased and all of this. I mean, my God, how is this not a penalty? Like, he just kicks him. Like, he doesn't win the ball, and he just absolutely kicks him. And I think again, this kind of reiterates what I'm saying about subconscious bias, or not even subconscious, pretty conscious bias, to be honest, because we were maybe harshly done by it in some people's eyes because of the red card. And then again, probably 10, 15 minutes later, Gusto just boots Minter off the ball pretty much, doesn't win the ball, obviously, and it's not given as a pen. So I just, again, I cannot explain this other than just some form of bias in their decision making based on previous decisions. What did you guys make of this one?
Look, I thought it was a penalty. If I had to come up with a reason why it's not a penalty, is because Minter did slightly duck his head and I don't think it was a red card. Like even though I thought it was a penalty, it wasn't a red card for a high boot because Gusto wasn't looking at him. He was behind him and his turn to do it. It's definitely not deliberate to do it, and it's a tough one because sort of some of the rules are like you've kicked him in the head, like that's a red card. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? But for them not to give a penalty is ridiculous. I don't understand how the ref can't see that one because I unless you thought he dived, he's clearly hit him, and then you got VAR. It's a bit silly that that one's missed, but I wouldn't have. It's like I wouldn't have wanted to see a red card for that because you know he's not done it deliberate. He has come from behind him. The intention is to completely play the ball and everything like that, but doesn't mean it's not a foul. It just means I don't think it's a red card. So think it was a penalty, no red card. Maybe probably a yellow would have been fair.
Yeah, I am surprised the penalty wasn't given here because that was a very high boot. You know, you tend to award free kicks for that, especially when you see them. Do you know, when a corner comes in and they go high boot, you win the free kick. I believed a penalty should have been given here. It's not a red card, but again, it's where those layers come into it. Yes, we know that Gusto didn't mean it, but you know, you don't necessarily mean to go in two-footed, but you can lose control. But it's not a red card, in my opinion. Just from face value, I would have given a penalty. Easy for me to say I'd given a penalty. I wouldn't know what I've done, especially if you've got three people in your ear telling you different things. I
Mm.
would have given a penalty, but yeah, it's not a red card. It's very, very poor from Gusto, actually. I mean, regardless of not seeing him coming, why would you risk doing that in your own penalty box if you can't see who's coming? So yeah, quite very, very clumsy. But yeah, I mean, luckily it didn't, it didn't alter the game for Brighton, did it?
Yeah. All right. Well, that is all we got time for. As always, we want to hear from you. Hit us up below. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.